Giddy up.
Hey.
All right, so I'm here with, I know you as Laurence.
Yep.
So Laurence Nguyen. And, geez, how old would you have been when I would have met you?
12?
12.
11?
11? Yeah. How old are you now?
turning 27?
27.
Yeah.
So I'm freaking old.
We are old.
So, how I guess Laurence and I met was at through kung fu school.
Yeah.
So Laurence would have been training with us as a kid, obviously, and we had a whole bunch of guys that was training together, and I was probably teaching at that time as well.
Yeah.
Yep,
You're one of the instructors.
I was one of the instructors, and we sort of haven't caught up in quite a while, and we'll talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
But then I thought, seeing you're doing pretty, like, I guess trying to do well.
Yeah.
You've got your own little business here, and I know it's trying times at the moment, and we're all adjusting to this new normal. But I figured, let's catch up. We can reminisce a bit on old times, and
I'm keen. Yeah.
So, talk me through the change between Laurence and Larry. When did that happen?
Oh, okay. So my family's always called me Larry because it's just a lot easier in Vietnamese to say Larry than Laurence.
Okay.
And then so one day on my 18th birthday, I had all my friends over, and my grandma brings down a little birthday cake and it says "Happy Birthday to Larry," and all my friends were like, "Who the fuck's Larry?" Like, I'm like, "Oh, that's me, guys." And then just from then, everyone just started calling me Larry, even though I didn't like the name Larry.
Yep.
But because it just stuck with me, I thought there's no point in fighting it. Everyone's gonna just call me
you Larry.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go back a little bit. So, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Maryland.
Maryland. Okay.
Yeah.
And what would be your earliest memory of growing up? Like, do you remember much about the place that you were living, or?
Yeah, because I'm still living there.
Yep.
So I've been living there my whole life, and the oldest memory I would have was when I was probably in year 2 or year 3. It's traumatic.
Okay.
I was walking back from school, going home. It was like a 20-minute walk by myself. And I remember a car pulls up next to me, and it was in a convertible with 2 Indian guys in it. And he was just asking me, "Do you know the way to Stockland Moors?" I'm like, "Yeah, you just go across that bridge and go straight and you'll be sweet." And then he's like, "I got one more question for you." I'm like, "What?" He's like, he looks at me and he's like, "Why are you so fat?" And I was just flabbergasted. I was like, I just helped this guy. And then now he's like chucked a 180 and he's like, and he just drove off laughing with him and his mate. And that's like one of the oldest memories I have of that, like of Maryland. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, but you've always been a slightly bigger guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, so even when I remember when we were training, as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, you're still a big kid.
Yeah.
Has that been something that you struggled with, or like people made a big deal of it, or when you were growing up?
No, not so much. Like my mates might chuck a little banter here and there.
Yeah.
But probably not up until recently. My girlfriend gives me shit for it, which is understandable.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. So then, school-wise, like, where'd you go for primary school?
Yeah, primary school, we went to Maryland's East Primary School.
Mm-hmm.
Very multicultural in Maryland, so we had a lot of ethnicities. So I stuck with Islanders, Serbians, Croatians a lot, and Philos. So there wasn't that many Vietnamese, surprisingly.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. And so then, how did you find? What do you remember about primary school? Did you enjoy it?
Oh man, primary school was really good because everyone, even though we were all of different ethnicities, everyone just got along very well.
Yep.
There wasn't that many fights, surprisingly.
Yep.
Teachers were good. I felt like it was a really good normal upbringing. There's not really much anything else that
stands out.
Yeah, stands out. It's pretty
normal.
Pretty normal.
Yep. Okay. And then high school. How did you find high school?
High school was a bit more different. I went to Arthur Phillip High School. We've got quite a reputable name, not because we sound like we're a really private school or anything. We weren't even private. We were bottom 300 out of the 400 high schools in New South Wales.
Yep.
It was very eye-opening because coming back from a Asian background, where we're very controlled by parents, or
Yep.
per se, and then you see all these, not always the Lebanese kids, but it's usually them,
Yeah.
where they're running around. During science, we could be dissecting chicken thighs or breasts, and they'll be chucking it on the ceiling to see if it would stick or not.
Yeah.
After the movie 300 came out, all the kids started like chanting, "This is 300, this is Sparta," and they'll be kicking the doors and breaking them down.
Yep.
It was a really good school, but like,
So how did the teachers respond to that?
oh man, they couldn't even control the students. The best they could do was like give a detention,
Yep.
and then the kids know that's not really gonna faze them much, and it just made school a lot more interesting, I guess. Like,
Yep.
or when certain kids didn't feel like going to class, they'll just pop sticks into the locks,
Okay.
and then the teachers would
Can't
you
open the door.
can't open the door, so you get a free period, and then, yeah. Alpha Philip. Some students you might know from the news.
Yeah.
Salim Hajama, the deputy organ.
Yep.
He came from there. His sister came from there. She was in my grade as well.
Yep. Did you ever associate with them when you were in high school?
Alicia, I did. I used to help do her maths homework.
Okay. Did you get suckered into doing that, or?
Nah, I got paid for doing it.
Oh, you got paid to do it?
Yeah, I got
Okay.
paid to do it.
Wow.
So, and it's not even that hard. So, might as well make a few dollars. You buy yourself a nice meat pie at the canteen or something.
Working for food.
Damn straight. Explains.
So then, how did you get introduced to Kung Fu then?
Oh, so it started with one of my family friends who's related to Patrick Nguyen,
Yep.
one of the previous students as well.
Yep.
So he just asked me to come along because we were family friends at the time, and then I was doing karate back then,
Mm-hmm.
and then for some reason the PCYC decided to stop the karate sessions.
Yep.
So I was, looking for something, and I've always been into martial arts, so I thought that was a good, nice change. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I guess for reference, we used to train at the Australian Chinese Teochew Association.
Yeah.
And then the style of martial arts is called Wuzuqian or Wuchuchuan, which is called Five Instances Fist. There was I guess for me, back then my first experience when I came to the Teochew Association, because we had other training halls elsewhere. So I was training on a Friday night at one of the other locations, and then I think I would have been towards the end of high school, or maybe at the start of uni. But this is before I had my license, because I remember I had to catch the train.
Oh wow!
Right, and so I grew up in the hills, so I grew up in northwest of Sydney.
Oh damn!
And so I caught the train, first time ever to Cabramatta, and then there was a guy Hung who was meant to meet me at the station. I don't know if you remember Hung.
No.
But Hung was I guess another student there, and he was meant to take me to where the association was, because I'd never been there. And so my first experience in Cabramatta by myself, like I do remember as a child going to Cabramatta before, and my parents must have taken us when we've gone to BKK and done some shopping and things like that. Yep. So I do remember that. But then, this is like, I've gone there myself. This is back in the day where there's no cell phones, right? Like, I didn't have a cell phone back then. So then I think I tried to call Hung on a payphone or something, because he wasn't at the station. And I'm like, and he's like, "Oh man, don't worry, I'll just tell you which way to walk." And so I'm walking around trying to find this place, and I still remember it so clearly. There was would have been an older Corolla, red Corolla, and there was these three druggos in the car.
Oh damn!
And I think I don't know whether one or two of them had OD'd or passed out or something like that. And it was just eye-opening for me to see that kind of a thing, so open back then.
Yes, yes.
So, and it was sort of, I guess as a younger guy, that sort of, who had never experienced any of that sort of left an impression on me.
Culture shock.
Yeah, a bit of a culture shock. But then, over the years, I was training on the Saturday nights, and, it changed a lot. The whole area sort of changed a lot.
How long were you been training in Cabramatta then?
So I started training in '98, and
Oh, damn.
so when I started training in '98, that was at there was a training hall at Thompson's Corner, so that's in
Ogun?
West Pennant Hills.
Oh, okay. Yep.
West Pennant Hills is it like the back of a church?
Whoa.
And how I got into it was I had a high school friend whose parents were family friends of my parents.
Oh, okay.
And so then Shane Lee was my friend's name, and so then his parents must have talked to my parents, and then we all decided I'd go with Shane.
Oh,
So he and I started together, and
were you up for the idea, or were you against it, or you're like,
No.
that's cool?
So I as a kid, right? I was what's the right word? You could say I reckon as a child, like when I was like say 5 or whatever, I was a bit of a crybaby.
Oh, yeah.
But I think it was more manipulative as opposed to being a crybaby.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because I look at my son now, and he's the same way. Like he'll cry about something, and then just to get his way. And then like we're at the point now where my wife and I, we actually have to like yell at him and like tell him, hey, stop being stupid or whatever, or like not being
You're
stupid.
not going to get what you want.
Yeah, like,
man.
hey, come on, stop crying. We know you're just trying it on type of thing, right? And then he'll stop, right?
Wow.
Whereas if you just like try and be like, oh, it's okay, he just keeps crying.
Yeah.
So it's like I think he's like already worked out that boundary, and I think for me as a kid, I probably managed to keep pushing that boundary, for a longer period than what I've since when I've cottoned on to my son, probably thinking about my own self at that age, right? And so I started karate at around.
Oh, you started karate as well?
Originally, I started in
Oh,
karate.
wow.
Yeah, it was I think it was called it was Goshin Khan karate. Yeah, that's what I started in, and I did that from probably about the age of 5 to maybe like 10 or something.
Damn. That's a pretty long time.
Yeah, so probably like 5 years of that, and then nothing for probably, what's that? So 98, I would have been 14. Yeah, so nothing for about 4 years.
What'd you stop?
After that? Why'd I stop? So we moved house. So where I grew up in St Clair, so in the west, so close to St Mary's, that sort of area, and the karate school was basically just around the corner at the local public school from our house.
Yep.
And so my parents originally put me in because I was a crybaby, and they thought it'd toughen me up, type of a thing. And so that's what we did. And then when we moved house, then we found a place like the same part of the school, but just a different instructor, I think. Running in a different hall. And so I think we went a few times at a place in Seven Hills, and then I just stopped for a few years until I got into Kung Fu.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So for you, like you were saying, you did karate as well?
Yep.
So was
did
that
it for
locally?
a year or two? Yeah, it was in Parramatta, PCYC as well.
Yep.
So it wasn't too far.
Yep. And so then, so Patrick obviously, got you to come along, and
Yeah. And then got me involved, and eventually, I enjoyed it so much, and then I got into the whole line dance game. So yeah, it's been pretty fun. It was pretty fun.
Yeah. So let's talk about line dancing for a bit. So what was the first performance that you remember you did?
Oh man, I remember me and Di, who's my line dance partner, we did the Moon Festival at Flemington Markets.
So what year would have that been? That would have been
A long time.
So, because I'm also trying to reflect on this as well, because I think my first experience with line dance would have been maybe around 2001 or 2.
Oh, okay. So I'm thinking maybe
You'll be later than that.
8.
Yeah. So, I think So my first performance, I actually didn't have any experience.
Oh, damn.
I rocked up to the Teochew Association for a Chinese New Year thing, because they need people or something like that.
Yeah.
And then there was another guy who was an instructor previously as well, Paisy, who I guess he I don't think he had any experience either. But anyway, here we go. we turned up, and then they go, here's a Northern Lion costume.
Northern Lion as well.
Straight into the Northern Lion, and then that was our first performing experience.
Oh man.
And then from that then started to develop develop the skills and work on it from there.
Nice.
So, but yeah, but when you would have come along, we would have been a lot more structured in how we taught, right?
Yeah.
So do you remember much about like how much of the training? I guess what are some of your memories about training? Like, did you enjoy it?
It was really enjoyable. Like, after looking back on it, it instilled a lot of discipline because you guys were quite strict, and was it you, Chucky, Michael, Peter,
Alan?
Oh yeah, Alan. Yeah, like I was grateful because of the discipline that that rubbed off on us after. And you don't really think about it during the moment when you're, doing 100 push-ups or whatever.
Yeah.
But afterwards, after leaving and everything, you're like, oh, I feel like I'm a more disciplined person. I can control my certain thoughts or the way I behave a lot better.
Yep.
Yeah.
Did it have any other, like, I guess, rub off in other aspects of your life? So that discipline, like, did you apply that discipline to schoolwork? Did you apply that discipline to?
So another skill I felt like I improved a lot on was socializing.
Yep.
So, because back then we'd go in a circle with like 50 people all paired up, and everyone would be doing long arm or short arm.
Yep.
And then, you can't just stare at this guy for 2 minutes and like not try and make a conversation starter,
Yeah.
So moving and talking to 50 different people, in a span of like 30 minutes, you got to be quick-witted, and you got to start thinking of a topic to start and like break that awkward moment.
Yeah.
So I felt that was one of the biggest things I got from martial arts.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
Which is good. Confidence is a great outcome.
Oh, confidence, yes.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was able to utilize that throughout, uni and even after university, or like, to help me build up business and talk to clients and customers, and instill that confidence.
Yep.
And then I guess combined with the discipline,
Yep.
it helped a lot.
So, okay, so let's talk about this. So when you were finishing high school, did you have any idea what you wanted to do?
I didn't. So I remember going to my advisor, and I just wanted something that is an upcoming genre or career path that I could focus on. And I don't know how hard she actually thought about it, but she just said the environment, and I was like, yeah, I like the environment. I like, sustainability and all that. And then went to uni, and then got my environmental science degree at University of Sydney.
Okay, yep.
So I was pretty much just testing water and soil and all that.
Yep.
But then when you leave university, especially after doing environmental science, you just learn how fucked up the environment is, and like you feel very demoralized to try and help the environment. Like after 3-4 years of learning how much damage and pollution and all that. So I guess that's why I switched to business.
Okay. So you finished that degree.
Yep.
And then, so when you say you switched to business, you mean you did a business degree, or you decided you don't want to go into that field?
Just did not want to go into that field. After working for a company called Coffee.
Yep.
So they're a big environmental construction company, and I was just working in a lab testing soil and concrete for construction foundations and stuff like that.
Yep.
Pretty crazy job. And I was just, thinking about environmental science, I always thought, it's a collective of scientists all working together happily, trying to figure out how to make the place better. But then after, working for a corporate company, it's just another corporation. You're in this
machine.
Your machine, and you're just grinding it out, helping make a company make more money, I guess. And I was just like, this doesn't feel like it's for me. Like, I'd rather make myself more money than help, this giant conglomerate make more money.
Yep.
So, what was the question?
So then how did you make that decision to then go into business? It was just like, so when you quit, like how did that conversation go with your boss?
It It was okay. So I remember at the time, my girlfriend at the time. Oh, it still is with me. Sorry, sorry, babe. Her sister was selling her photo booth company. Oh, but then prior to that, I was learning the basics of business, supply and demand, because at the time I was kind of a pothead,
Okay.
and then I was selling pot to my mates.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Oh, and yeah, that kind of gave me that little spark initially,
Yep.
and then got to the point where my girlfriend's sister was like, "Hey," because at the time she was running a photo booth company
Yep.
called Your Scene, and she was thinking of giving it up. She wants to start, move to Queensland, start a new company up there in regards to agriculture, and I was like, "Yeah, I got a bit of savings. I could learn how to, better myself in business, how to formally interact with people, know how to do marketing and sales properly.
Mm.
But yeah, so that I guess that
That
kinda
was the
sparked it.
start.
Yeah.
So then, so what was that your first foray into business then? So that was.
Yep.
Yep.
And then from there, I was running it for 2-3 years. And then I started getting sick of the photo booth business and dealing with like bridezillas and all that stuff. So it started getting to me. So one of my best mates, Waternack Sam, and another mate, Tree. Waternack at the time was a nurse at Liverpool Hospital, and he was just complaining about just working and then, having like a dumb superior or whatever that you got to listen to. And so he was like, "Man, I just want to do business, blah, blah, it looks more fun."
Yep.
And I'm like, "Oh, it's not that fun,
Yeah.
And I was like, you think of an idea, you come back to me, and if I like it, then, we can test it out. So he found the whole concept of pokey taking off in America and Hawaii and all that, and saw how it's starting to branch internationally.
Mm-hmm.
And so he brought that to me, and I was like, "Oh yeah, this looks really yum." And like at the time, I'm like, "Yeah, sushi, you spend so much and you get so little for it."
Yeah.
Whereas this is like you're getting nearly a kilo of food for half the price.
Yeah.
So we tested the concept by first implementing going to food markets, getting our food certificate. And what we did initially was, go around to all our competition, analyze what they were doing well and what they weren't doing well, and try and fix on the parts that they were weak on.
Yep.
And so that's how we started with our first bowl, which is the premium salmon bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Funny enough, poke is meant to be eaten with tuna primary.
Okay. Yep.
And then
Well, that's the Hawaiian way, right? Like, so, they've got a specific tuna that they have a lot.
ahi tuna.
Yeah, ahi tuna. Yep.
And then, but funny enough, because we started with salmon, because tuna is nearly double the price of salmon, surprisingly. It's like nearly $50 a kilo. So we started with salmon, and now, because that's the initial taste that everyone in the area got, they just automatically presume.
People gravitate towards that.
Yep.
Yep.
So yeah, it was pretty interesting.
So what was it like doing the food? Well, actually, my first question would be: was there much competition in that Pokeball space back then?
No, surprisingly.
Yeah.
Oh, not surprisingly. There was none at the time in the West. Sorry.
Yeah.
So in the city, North Shore, and eastern suburbs are our biggest competitors.
Okay.
So we decided to try and target the West first, and initially, eventually try and move up closer to the city.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's the plan for now.
And then, so when you guys first started out at the markets, was that just a single product offering? So you just had that one bowl, and that's all you were doing?
Yep. So we were just doing the one bowl. You can either get salmon, and just to cater to the vegetarians, we offered a tofu alternative.
Yep. Okay. And then, how did you then grow that menu?
Yep. So when we felt like we were ready to evolve, luckily at the time, I knew Trung Bui, who was another former senior at the Kung Fu martial art group.
Yep.
So what sparked it for us to get ready was there was an Instagram. They were called Dopa Bowls, and they just started an Instagram without starting a little shop or whatnot. And they just started promising that they're gonna open a poke joint in Cabramatta.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh shit, what the fuck? Like these guys
They
got the same idea as us.
Yeah.
So we took all our savings, borrowed what we can, caught up Trung from Espresso Warriors, and one of his business partners at the time, Cook, was our mentor.
Yep.
So he guided us throughout the entire process of construction, architectural design, business, helping us hire this chef, a Japanese chef, to help cater to make our sauces and some of our menus. And and then because of that mentorship, it helped build what we have now.
Yeah,
and
wow.
then we were able to, after that, learn ourselves and
got it from there.
Yep.
Was there any points in throughout that process where you're like, oh shit, I don't know if I want to do this anymore?
No, I felt like we were already in too deep to even care. It's like you gotta go all
the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, well, that's a good way to think about it. Like I think a lot of the times, right before you make that or you get to that successful tipping point, a lot of people will give up.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, it could be the other way where you don't give up and you're just beating your head against the wall on a dead idea, right? Yeah. So I guess when you guys started out, obviously you probably would have been making a loss at the beginning. Would I be right in saying?
The food markets, we were probably making a loss to just breaking even.
Okay.
Without having to pay ourselves.
Yep. But that was more just to trial the product, right?
Yep. And then we started noticing how, because usually when you go to a food festival, you go once and then try everything and then you never come back maybe till next year.
Mm.
What we were noticing was a lot of office people would be coming nearly every day or weekly, because the festival is weekly, just to get our food, and then they'll just leave.
Yep.
So they'll get takeaway for tomorrow and they'll just leave. Every week, the same customers. So we started growing a regular customer base, and we're like, hey, it seems like there's an actual niche. Yeah, there's an actual opportunity here.
Yep. And what location, which markets were they?
Mainly Fairfield food markets.
Okay.
So that was our main one every week, and would go to other areas, but we noticed that the Fairfield Cabramatta area was the strongest fan base we had.
Yep. So then what was I guess when you guys decided to opt for a physical shop, did you ever think about, potentially instead looking at like a food truck and doing that style of things instead?
Oh, we did. And luckily enough, during those food festivals, we were able to befriend a lot of the food trucky guys or the food tent guys. And then, just talking to them felt like it's not worth it.
Yeah.
After like gaining certain knowledge from them, and like just seemed like it was too tiring. Even to today, a lot of our mates who are still running food trucks, they want to do shops instead of food trucks.
Yeah.
Because they don't want the hassle of having to travel around, hassle people for events.
Yep.
And then with the events, it's hit and miss.
Yeah, whether it's busy or not.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. And then, like, obviously, at the present moment with this whole COVID-19 thing happening, that's, what sort of an impact have you felt, in your business here?
Oh, man. So we've felt like 30% to 40% hit, I would say. A lot of our customers who usually just come in and buy, they're starting to use, the online delivery systems like Menulog, Uber. Yep. Mainly Uber. It sucks because Uber takes 35% commission of your total sales. Yep. And then even during the whole coronavirus scare, everyone turned to Uber and like, are you going to help us out? And, they just replied with, we're not going to take any commissions on anyone that orders on our platform and comes in and grabs it themselves. And we're like, really? That's all you're giving us? Yeah. And I think it was like $300 marketing credit, which we don't even know how to use. And why would we use it just to help you get more sales, to take more commission from us? Right? Like,
yeah. That's very challenging, right? But there are quite a few providers in that space, right? Like, there's Deliveroo, There's Menulog.
Menulog. Now there's DoorDash as well. So Menulog and Deliveroo, they take 28%.
Yep.
So they don't budge that much. DoorDash being a new guy, they're trying to incentivize everyone with like a whole 1 month free non-commission.
Yep.
But right now I'm having trouble with just getting the tablet started.
Okay. And then what about the drivers, right? Like, do they have the right amount of drivers on that platform? Like, that's the last thing you want, is that you go onto a platform, somebody orders, and then there's no driver turn up to take the food, right?
Oh man, so Uber Eats is the only company that seems like they've got their shit together in Cabramatta.
Yeah.
Menulog, Deliveroo could take like 10, 20 minutes before they would even find anyone. So you'll just be like having your food
Sitting there on the counter.
There, yeah.
Yep.
And you're like, what the fuck are these guys doing? You know, these guys promise you the world. You know, you have drivers, you don't have to worry about leaving your food out there to waste. And then, you know, you're just sitting there waiting, like, what the fuck? And then these guys are, you know, they're trying to incentivize you, you know, stay on our service, you know.
Yep.
But
yep. And then, so do you find, like, you know, for like do you have a regular customer base here, or how does?
Yep. Yeah. So thankfully, we've got a pretty big fan base. We've got people that come in every 2 days, sometimes every day. Just before, John, the fellow you were talking to, he's one of my best customers. He's been visiting us since the very beginning at the food festivals. So that's how we befriended him.
Yep.
And so, you know, I'm so glad that, you know, we've got customers that would just come and just chill with me, and like they might just buy one bowl and just hang back and just kick back. Yeah.
Yep.
So I feel like we've got a pretty strong fan base.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay. And then I guess, you know, would there be any sort of lessons that you think, you know, you've learnt along the way that, you know, would be worthwhile to share, so that, you know, if there's anybody in that space that is looking to do something in business, yeah.
Not just hospitality.
Not just hospitality, just in general.
Yeah. A lot of research, a lot of studying. Don't go with it if you don't have the skills. Unless you've got the money to hire someone with the skills, then, you know, or go for it. But a lot of people think business is like, you know, no headaches. It's all money, and they don't think about all the obstacles that it took to get here.
Yeah.
There is a lot of obstacles, even if you can plan for the best business plans, but I can guarantee you they'll never go to the way they're planned.
I can speak to that, because you know, at this I run a BMW dealership, and you know, I had all these plans in place for, you know, what we're going to achieve this year, and then, you know, January and February we're basically according to where we pretty much wanted to be. Then March rolls around and starts okay, and then falls off a cliff. And then and one of the biggest problems we've got at the moment is that a lot of customers are obviously like, are you guys even open or allowed to be open? Because the messaging is so conflicting.
Yeah.
From the government,
federal.
Yeah. So, you know, I like from that, I guess if I could clarify on that, you know, according to the schedule and the rules, like a retail outlet is entitled to be open.
Yep.
So, and people can actually still, it is a reasonable excuse to actually go to a retail store to buy goods or services as you require.
Yeah.
So, you know, but we've had to make adjustments to our business as a result of it. Like, so as an example, you know, we might have customers who don't know, well, they don't feel comfortable to come into a dealership.
Yep.
So in which case now we're either trying to showcase vehicles virtually, so doing like online display, or like through FaceTime and video messaging and chats and things like that.
Yep.
Or, you know, we obviously try and we've always done this in the past, but I guess most people in the past would have just said, no, I'll just come in, because then they can see more than one vehicle.
Yeah.
Whereas if you ask us to come out to you, we can only really show you one vehicle.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're not sure what you want and you need to see, feel and touch a few different cars, then, you know, you're still better off to obviously come into the dealership. But if you know what you want and it's just a matter of driving it and then working out, you know, a deal or whatever, well, then we can come out and facilitate that sort of stuff. Damn. But, you know, like we had to change, or like not change, but like add all these processes around sanitation.
Oh, yes.
All that sort of stuff.
So you would be the guy that has to be the one that implements and comes up with these ideas, or is there like someone from BMW that tells you?
There's a mixture of both.
Yep.
So, when all this sort of happens, like everybody's trying to work out what's the best way to move forward, right? And, depending on what the news is, from the government or the next, outcome or the next stage or whatever, because it sort of escalated very quickly.
Yeah.
So, we sort of went from stage 1 to this stage 3 style of lockdown, or not lockdown, but they don't want to call it a lockdown.
But a lockdown.
Yeah, everything but, we went to these stage 3 restrictions quite quickly.
Yeah.
So the landscape changed very quickly.
So quick.
And so, I think, like, as a result of that, like, there was a lot of things that we had to start to augment in our processes and to try and, make sure that we're providing best practice.
And this is what you need to do on the daily. You need to be implementing this straight away.
Well, like, see, at the end of the day, the thing that I always think about is that, if there was an instance of COVID-19 at your facility or at your business, like, that could kill your business.
Yeah.
So you have to take every precaution to make sure that you're not exposing your staff, you're exposing your guests to that sort of thing, because you have something like that happen, that it could be game over, right?
Yeah, like you could be building up your reputation for years, and
Exactly.
then it's
gone.
Yeah,
right.
Because one guy supposedly had it or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
So you can't take those risks, and it's I was actually making this comment because, like, a lot of now we wear gloves and all this sort of stuff, and like, for our cars we put we wrap the steering wheels in in plastic after they've been sanitized. We put seat covers on and gear lever protectors and handbrake lever protectors and that sort of stuff.
Are they all BMW?
They're all plastic, but they got, like, just say BMW on it or whatever. But, like, the amount of waste as a result of that, like, how much plastic are we actually using? Like, it's
ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
I just because me and my mates got Macca's the other day, and they started putting plastic wraps on the straws individually again. Every straw, yeah. I'm like, this is such a waste. Like,
yeah. That sort of stuff is just like, like it's funny because I see those posts about how, because everybody's, like, staying more indoors and things like that, how our environment is recovering.
Oh,
right?
yes.
Now we're about to dump all these used gloves, all these masks, all these things that got to go in. They're going to end up in landfill.
See, this goes back to me being an environmental scientist and not wanting to deal with any of this shit.
So, well, let's talk a little bit about that. So, did you ever have to look at, what was the environmental impact of a landfill as an example?
We did mining consultations. So it would take a few years to mine, like, a large area, and it would take like 20 to 30 years minimum just to remediate that area. And then, the amount of money you need to spend, and just to have scientists or like consultants just every year just going there just to double check that it's not fucked up. Like,
so my sort of, simplistic mind would be like, okay, you take the minerals out of the earth.
Yep.
Why can't you just fill it back in and it'll go back to normal?
So it depends on the technique they use. So at the moment, have you heard of fracking?
Yep.
That's a big one. So they're pretty much pumping all this dangerous gas or liquid into the ground, and that gas collects the minerals that they want.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's something like that. And then so what happens is that leaves all these micro spaces under the floor, right?
Yep.
And eventually, with all the weight or whatever you have on top of it just compacts, and that's why we're getting all those those holes in the streets and all that.
Okay. So that's what causes that. So
could
fracking is a contributor to that.
And then you're also releasing more, I think it was methane being released. So that's why certain towns in the US, their water's starting to become flammable.
Oh, wow.
They can literally
there's gas in the water.
Yeah, because you've released whatever compound was holding the gas down, just so you can extract a certain part of it, and now you've dug yourself a deeper hole.
Yep. So then, because isn't that a big contributor in terms of in landfills? Is there's a lot of methane that comes out of that because we everybody uses a plastic bag and ties up their rubbish, in a plastic bag. So all the stuff that's supposed to be decomposting in there is ballooning up in a bag.
Yeah,
And
because
then when the bags pop, like it's just releasing
it's
methane gas,
just releasing more methane gas,
Yeah.
and it's just all building up, and like it just makes the land that it's less sturdy, I guess, because you're building all these gas bubbles throughout the land.
Yep.
But like Homebush, it was a
Yep.
Homebush or Olympic that
Yep.
that used to be
A landfill. Yep.
landfill. So that seems kind of promising, I guess. Like if we can just keep doing that, but I don't really know what the repercussions have been long term, because it hasn't been that long, has it? Like when were the Olympics?
That was back in 2000, right? So
Oh damn, that's 20.
yeah.
Shit.
Yeah, but that whole area is sort of, now there's apartments there, and they've tried their best to remediate that side of the land.
And then just something like that can be considered like a giant science experiment, because you don't really know what's going to happen in the next 50 to 100 years when, all this rubbish is actually decomposing and stuff. And like what's going to happen when, when the ground deep underground, it starts like collapsing on itself. And then
Does that stuff leach into, like, so, because obviously there's at some level under the ground there's water, right?
Yep.
So those, whatever's in the rubbish, would that eventually leach down into the water supply?
potentially could.
Yeah.
And then it potentially could, but luckily Australia or Sydney, we've got a pretty good water filtration system, so we're just going to take the water and going to squirt all that crap back into the ocean. Yes.
Oh, wow. All right, let's get off that topic.
Yeah, it was pretty dark.
Yeah, man. Like for me, I'm really happy to see you doing really well.
Thanks, man. Cheers.
Yeah, like I saw a lot of, like, I guess, so I keep, I know your name's Larry now, but
You can call me Laurence.
So a lot of Lawrence's generation, I taught a lot of them, when they started, because I used to always take the beginner classes and things like that.
Yeah.
And like now, when I see you guys and you're all,
Grown up.
you're all grown up doing your own things. I remember the other one day I was I dropped a car off to a client or something, and then I was on the train heading somewhere, and then I was standing on the train, and then someone came up and just goes and sort of looked at me, and he goes, "Johnny," and I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Man, you taught me martial arts." And then I'm like, "Yeah, cool story."
You remember his name?
I have no idea who you were, so I'm so sorry. But like, and he's grown up too, right?
Yeah.
Like, I might have seen these guys when they were kids, and then now they're adults, right?
Yeah, it's insane, eh? Like, it's just like me, my like Die. Like, have you seen Die lately?
I haven't seen Dilate. Oh, I saw him at someone's wedding. I saw him at I think I saw him at someone's wedding.
I will probably.
Yeah.
Maybe David and Amy's.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, it's like he just recently got married as well, and it's just insane. Just like,
Yeah, and he's running his own business as well.
oh man, so that guy, he is a tank when it comes to business. He is running a trucking company that works with Woolies to do the online sales.
Oh wow!
So during this Corona thing, he's killing it. He's killing it.
Yep.
And at the same time, he's running a Japanese import motor oil.
Yep.
Takumi Oils. Yeah, shout out. But yeah, it's just insane seeing, especially, Dai grow as a person as well. Surprisingly, like, because he wasn't the brightest crayon in high school.
Yeah.
And when he left to do audio engineering, you don't expect 10 years later this guy's running a little conglomerate and like trucking and stuff, working with like multi-billion-dollar companies like Linfox and Woolies. And it's just insane.
Well,
like,
where you start doesn't always dictate where you finish. But that's also one of the craziest things is just, like I never really thought about, 10 years on from, when I was teaching you guys, and, what do you grow up to be, right?
Well, well, when I was listening to your previous podcast, like I was surprised you did like engineering and law.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, did not see maybe the law side. didn't see you as an engineer. I was like, whoa, what the hell? That's so cool. Like, it's crazy how it just takes you. Like, how did you get from doing law and to becoming the head honcho in like BMW and like
Well, so
very
okay,
different.
yeah, so there was a few things there. So part of the reason why I did engineering and law, like originally I was comfortable to just do engineering.
Yep.
My brother did engineering and international studies.
Older or younger?
Older.
Oh,
so
yeah.
he's 7 years older than me.
Oh, damn.
And and I when I look back on it, like I always think now that I understand. Like I have a good relationship with my brother, and I think though, for me, I always had this sort of impatience where I'd look at my brother and the things that he could do, and even though he's 7 years older, I would expect to be able to do the same. Right.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if that's competitiveness or just I guess I never really used age as a boundary, right?
Yep.
Like for me, that's never been my thing.
Yeah.
And so when I finished high school, I sort of was thinking about what to do.
Yep.
So I did. I think I told this story on one of the previous podcasts where
I've listened
about I had a chance at a BIT, a Bachelor of Information Technology scholarship, and then I fucked it up because I was like trying to be too what would be the word I was trying to be too smooth with my interview prep, and then I stuffed up and I forgot some of the things that I wanted to talk about. So anyway, for whatever reason, didn't work out.
Yeah.
And then I had the marks to basically get into engineering and law at UTS.
Shit.
It was the first year that they offered that course, and so I thought, oh fuck it, why not? I'll just do it.
Yeah.
And then at that time, like my mum was going through some things, so for a lot of my time throughout uni, I was more or less home alone in the sense that my dad was still running his own business, so he was always working.
Oh, damn.
And then there was a period when I think it would have been maybe when I was in second year or something, maybe towards the end of second year, where I said to my mum, you need to take a break, and I sent her overseas, not knowing that she wouldn't come back.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, it took her years before she came back, and
Is it China or
to Malaysia.
Oh,
So
Malaysia, sorry.
I sent her to Malaysia and Singapore basically to go and visit her sister and her family.
Oh, damn.
Started off well, and then she deteriorated when she was over there.
Yeah.
And then she wouldn't come back. And
Because she was just enjoying it so much better.
no, paranoid.
Paranoid.
And like plenty of I guess mental health issues.
Yep.
So then that then gave me the drive to realize that hey, I need to fend for myself, because
So where was your brother at the time then?
I think by that stage, so
Oh, yeah, he would have graduated. by
Donnie
then?
would have probably been on his well, he was overseas for a long he was overseas for quite a while as well.
Oh, okay.
Because part of his international studies was he went overseas, and then so then he spent a bit longer overseas and was working and doing things like that. And I guess by the time he came back, he probably only really stayed at home for maybe another year or two, and then basically had moved out.
Oh, shit.
So I sort of had this pressure on myself to try and make things work.
Yeah.
So to buy all the uni textbooks and all that sort of stuff. So I that's how I started my apprenticeship. It was just in the local paper, and it was a ad for the local Toyota dealer, and I applied, and I said I'm still studying at uni, but if you're looking for someone, then I'd like to.
So you didn't even need to go TAFE during that time
I did.
too? Oh, what?
I did that as well. Yeah.
Holy crap! Yeah.
So back when you when I would have been teaching you, I would have been at uni, working somewhere between 30 to 38 hours a week as an apprentice. Well, let's say around 30 hours, because then 1 day a week at TAFE.
Yep.
So, and I was doing all that for probably 3-4 years. Yeah, and training every other night.
Oh yeah, yep.
Right. So,
and you weren't just training on Saturdays. You were training
I was training Fridays, Sundays, Tuesdays, and then so Saturdays as well. And then at some point, we were also doing Wednesdays as well, online training.
Yeah.
So
God damn.
I worked out a way. I sacrificed things. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I didn't really have much. I wouldn't say I had much of a social life back then, because once I started to get into that groove, like that
Get
was
over the social life.
yeah. Well, that wasn't as important to me
Yeah.
as doing the things that I really enjoyed. And I think, you know, I think in some senses it's probably more. It was more selfish what I did. In the sense, because like, you know, like if friends were celebrating birthdays, like I wouldn't go unless it was after training. And then, you know, and so like, you know, so I'd sacrifice, I'd basically do the things that I enjoyed the most first and put those things first before any of those other things.
Yep.
And then now, you know, I'm sort of at a different stage in life where, you know, I wouldn't do that again. I shouldn't do that with kids, you know, like, because now it's no longer about me being selfish from that perspective. It's about how do I now help this young person, this, you know, the next person,
Little
generation,
you,
little me or whatever, maximize their potential, right? And like I don't say that, you know, I do think that a lot of that comes down to the individual, right? Like you could have the best upbringing in the world and still end up like rubbish, and you could have the worst upbringing in the world and end up in the right place, right?
Yeah, that's right.
But if there is some sort of influencing factors that I can sort of instill, then I'm going to do my best to do that. Yeah. And then whatever happens from there, well, that's up to them. Yeah. Like at the end of the day,
you can try your best.
You can try, And so as long as I can be happy that I've tried my best on that perspective, then I'm comfortable from there.
So if she wanted to do like engineering, he?
I got a daughter and a son. Yeah.
Oh, you got a daughter and a son.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So the daughter's the older one, and my son's the younger one. Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy, man.
Yeah.
like how we were saying, we grow up and it's insane.
Yeah.
So when did it like click to you? You're like, damn, I guess was it when the baby was born? You're like, damn, I got like a lot more responsibilities. I gotta prioritize my time a bit better, or gotta learn to manage what's important. Or
look, I don't think the change was overnight. Yeah. So I think the change was a bit more gradual. I think, you know, as a male, you know, when your wife's pregnant with the first one, like my sort of feelings was, it was very hard to feel involved in it, because it's not like the baby's growing in my body. Yeah. The most, like, you know, every time I would go to the appointments, I'd get excited. Yeah. But then, you know, I'd come home and it's back to your life as usual. Yep. Right. And you know, when Cadence was born, then, you know, you have it was very emotional.
Were you there at the?
I was there. You know, I got to catch her and do all that, and that was really, like, I found that really emotional. And I guess I often comment, you know, there was two different emotions between, you know, having a daughter being born and a son being born. Oh, wow. I don't know if other people feel this, but that's just what I felt like. I felt like, you know, with my daughter, it's, you know, and it's not, I'm not trying to be sexist, but this is just how I felt, right? Like, I felt like it's my daughter, I want to protect her, and you have those sorts of emotions. I think it's a very instinctive kind of a feeling. And then when I had my son, it was like, I want him to be good, you know, strong, and, you know, all that sort of stuff. Like, you know, you think of it from that perspective. And so, you know, Ange would often say, you know, like, it's like you don't love Harley as much as you love Cadence, right? Because, you know, you had a very different, and even like, you know, at home she'll be like, you know, Cadence is your favorite. And I'm like, no, like, it's just different.
Yeah, I just want to protect him more than.
Yeah, it's a different, you engage with them differently. Yeah. You know, so, you know, I think that's why, you know, if kids can grow up with a complete home, then obviously they're going to get two different experiences. Yeah. Right. But obviously that depends on the parents too, right? Like if the parents don't engage with the child, or, you know, want to be a part of that child's life, is a different story. Yep. But yeah, so I think, you know, I would say I changed slower than you'd think. So, you know, and I think I told this story on the last podcast, but, you know, even after Cadence was born, I think the next week I was back at training.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. Right. So back into it, you know, just like trying to stay in the habits, right?
Yeah, true.
And I think, you know, this like the quarantine thing and this COVID thing, does help to adjust your perspectives on things as well.
Yeah.
Because you like I go to work and then I come home and I spend my time with them.
Yep.
And for the first time in a very long time, I don't have to chase and go to training or do something else like normal, right? So if even before this whole COVID-19 thing, I was still training a lot.
Yep.
But I started to adjust my hours a little bit that would better suit me.
Yep. And the family?
And the family,
Yep.
right? So, whether it would mean that I only go to a later session on a couple of nights as opposed to, a 2-hour session, I'll just do a 1-hour session type of a thing.
Yeah.
So doing those sorts of things to adjust the timetable.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. But you also got into a bit of MMA training after as well.
Oh, man. Yes. I just recently joined, it's been a year or so, going to UFC gym.
Yep.
Learn a bit more on the jiu-jitsu side and the Muay Thai side of things.
Yep.
So it was really interesting because it was very different because I'm so used to our training where we're very, heavy stance and
Structured.
it's very structured.
Yep.
Whereas like something as jiu-jitsu is very flowy.
Yep.
You gotta be, you gotta be able to go rigid or go back to being flowy.
Yep.
Very, very different, very different. But I enjoyed it.
Yep.
I'm very glad that I was able to do the Kung Fu first because that helped build a lot of
Foundation.
Yep. A lot of the strength instilled into it.
Yep.
So that made it a lot easier when I started going to all these things.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And this is the thing that I think, if we talk about martial arts, it's like there's no I would say there's no innately bad martial arts and no innately good martial arts, right? It's what are the lessons that you can learn out of each?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think at some point though, a lot of the concepts translate.
Yep.
So concepts like when we talk about inside control, inside position, those sorts of things, they apply both in Kung Fu, they apply in Jiu-Jitsu, they can apply in kickboxing as well, right? When we talk about your stances and having that structure, well, those stances can still carry between those arts. It's just about when you elect to use, when you should be using them and when you shouldn't be, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people get too carried away in those structures, to be able to know when, just like what we were saying before about when to give up on that particular movement and when to keep going with it. So sometimes you can try and be perfect to a fault, that you get the movements 100% correct, but then the person that you might be sparring with might have no background and might just be a wild brawler. Yeah. Right? And so now all that perfection...
And then you're so used to training against, some guy that does the same martial arts or the same style as you.
Yep.
And then when you go, to this wild brawler, and you're like, what the fuck is this guy doing? He's like, he doesn't give a crap. Like, he's wide open, but he's, swinging wildly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's an eye opener for anyone, and I think it's always good to expand your horizons
most definitely,
and try different things, and work out what fits for you, because everybody's body shape is different too.
Oh, totally.
Right.
Totally, yeah.
So I just thinking about that. I remember back at one of our training sessions, and I won't name him, but one of the guys was holding pads, and you kicked him, and he got very upset.
He was so pissed.
he got very upset because he wasn't. I don't think he expected the kick to be that hard. Or he wasn't ready or something, and smacked himself in the head or something like that. Yeah.
That brings back good memories.
But I think back then we still experimented quite a bit.
We did. Like I remember I would bring the mats and then would like practice jiu-jitsu or like you would learn something and then you would show us and then that was really fun.
Yeah.
The sparring part.
And line dancing back then was I guess talking about a little bit of the history in terms of our school and the and line dancing, like I think way back in the days, so this is even before I started, there was only really like two or three schools maybe that was doing line dancing.
Damn.
So we would have been one of the original places doing line dancing, and it just sort of developed over the years. Like at one point, we had a massive team, you
Yeah.
know,
Big
like-
team.
yeah, a huge team, and you know, we'd have performances all over Sydney.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and we had to split at some point into 3 or 4 teams.
Yeah,
But we
yeah.
had the numbers back then.
Yeah, we had the manpower then.
Yeah.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah, and yeah, it was a lot of fun back then, and you know, I think there was a lot of good lessons in that as well. You know, from developing, you know, the strength and the technique to be able to do those movements.
Yeah.
You know, and like, you know, for a bigger sized guy, like, you know, you could do the movements pretty well.
Oh, thanks, man. It was like, as you were saying, how with all this strength and stuff, like my friends, it was one of his birthdays the other day, and he hired adult jumping castles.
Okay.
And then my mates who have a background in parkour and tricking were
Yep.
doing backflips.
Yeah.
And they're like, Larry, you try and do a backflip. And I've never even attempted.
Yep.
And then I tried it, and I nearly got it on my first go, and everyone was like just so surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't even need to do a little bounce or anything to get the leverage. I just straight up just did it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, fuck your thighs, man. Like there's a fucking line dancing thigh.
all that horse dance with somebody
Yeah.
standing on you, basically.
And then, yeah, I'm just so surprised because something, that was instilled to me like nearly 10 years ago
Yeah.
carried on, and I'm able to adjust to these new movements, and
Yeah.
because my body hasn't totally adjusted to doing a backflip.
Yeah.
But I was just
You can pick it
astonished.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. You know, I do hope that, you know, and this is, you know, for all the guys that have come and gone, you know, through training before, like, you know, still keep doing something.
Yeah,
You know,
please.
keep active, because, you know, it does. Otherwise, you know, it is one of those things that you lose over time. You know, you
Yeah.
lose that suppleness in the muscles and the
Oh
tendons
yeah,
and things
especially at that age working.
like that. Yeah. Well, work does it to you too, because you
Oh.
get used to, if you work a desk job, right?
Yeah.
You're always sitting. Right?
Always, yeah.
And then if you work a job like, so for you, you spend a lot of the day standing,
Yeah.
but your body would adjust to that.
Yes.
So you have compensations in there as well. So, you know, certain movements, you know, then you go and do something and you'll be like, oh crap, I just tweak my back or tweak my leg or something
yeah.
like that.
There's weird sounds that you're not used to.
But yeah. All right, man. Well, we've just done about an hour.
Oh, was that already an hour?
That's already an hour.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No. Oh, what made you want to start a podcast?
Okay. So, couple of things happened. You know, and I do tell this story a bit, but so actually, it's almost heading up to a year now. I had a mate last year commit suicide,
Oh shit, sorry.
and it was actually, so it's just after Easter. So we're about to head into Easter. So it's pretty much about a year now, and so basically, he's a high school mate of mine, Adrian. Yeah, he committed suicide. He was like, we had, strangely enough, I was talking to my high school mate Ivan today,
Yeah.
and so we were the last guys to have dinner with him before it happened.
Damn.
So we had dinner on Easter Monday last year,
Yeah.
and when we had dinner, it was like everything was normal,
Normal.
right? And we were just talking normally and talking about life and you know, holidays and all that sort of stuff. And then 5 days later, he jumped in front of a train.
Wow.
And so Ivan and I, we were obviously a bit distraught about it. We were talking to each other, you know, trying to work out, you know, did we miss something?
Yeah.
You know, did we miss something that we should have picked up on when that happened, or when we caught up for dinner? Like, was he trying to ask for help and we didn't pick up on it? Like, fuck, like what did we miss? Yeah, I guess, you know, after that makes you evaluate a lot of things and take stock and then the other part of it was like, you know, my kids were starting to grow and you know, I was looking at them and thinking, you know, I don't know a lot about my ancestors, like my grandparents and that sort of thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I wanted to. So the second part of my reasoning for why I started the podcast was I wanted to have that conversation with my dad, right, and ask him questions about his childhood, so that so there's something there.
Is he still running a business and all that?
Yeah,
or?
so he's still a tax accountant and still doing
wow.
all that. Yeah, so so the third podcast I did was actually I got to do that.
Yeah.
So I got to sit down with him and ask him questions and basically, like I sort of why I enjoy the podcast format is because to me this is like well it's like a book basically, So, you can obviously write an autobiography type of thing. You can sit there and write out your life's work and you can do it in that sort of a fashion. So I guess for me, I'm using this as that sort of time capsule and, I want to be able to listen back to some of these memories. And not only that, I guess, maybe selfishly, I want to have that there for maybe one day for my kids.
That's cool.
If I never get to tell them these stories, that they have something that they could listen to and understand more about who Dad was and who were some of his friends and the people that he talked to and I guess trying to share some of those stories so that because I think storytelling was the way that information used to get transferred.
Yep.
And then now we have these more robust records with the internet and all those sorts of things on those kinds of platforms. But if I can, have some sort of slice there to share, people's stories and my own, that's why I did it.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's a really cool reason.
Yeah.
And then, so you just went all out and...
So actually, funnily enough, I always do say that I can talk about the equipment and then I don't know whether I can't remember whether I do or not, if I do it on the podcast or I just end up talking about it after the podcast with people. But yeah, so I one of the businesses that I used to work for before, we had ties with Rode, which is the audio visual style company. So basically, I organised with them to try and work out what kind of equipment. And Jason Tran, who's been on the podcast a couple of episodes ago, we were talking about it as well, and he gave me some suggestions, and then in the end, Rode had just released this, what they call the Rodecaster, which is like a podcasting machine.
Oh damn!
So then in the end, I just was like, all right, fuck it.
So this is the latest.
I bought it.
Trying to be humble.
I bought it at the end of last year, so I'm guessing it would be the latest. But the reason why I bought it is because I was just trying to be as lazy as possible. Hence why, I don't really edit. I don't take stuff out. I'd rather just have the conversation from start to finish. And
Joe Rogan experience, I like that.
Well, yeah, and I think it wouldn't be honest.
As natural, right?
Yeah, I feel like if I had to edit bits and pieces out, and that's why, I guess similar to writing a book, you can write repeated drafts before you release the final copy. But I think, there's something...
That's not raw enough.
Yeah, I like the rawness of it.
Yeah.
That, that everything is just it's a blank canvas, it's a draft. Who knows where the conversation is going to go.
Yeah.
Whatever we talk about is whatever we talk about, and whatever it is whatever it is.
Oh, damn.
So that's basically what I did in terms of the equipment, and I just forked out for the equipment, and I got another mate, Clarky, who's I've got to get on this as well, but so basically, I do have more mics and things like that to try and facilitate larger podcasts, but it's just sort of been I wanted to do like maybe him and someone else, and have 3 people in the conversation type of a thing.
Okay.
But so far, it's just been, I've just sort of been, going through, the people that I know and trying to share people's stories really.
I thought it was crazy how Tim Fung.
Yep.
I was like, what? The CEO of AirTasker.
Yeah.
What? You guys went back 15 years ago. I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah. But this is the thing, you don't know where people are going to end up.
Nah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, if you just, I think, ultimately you just got to try and be a good person and not worry about, where somebody's at in life right now, because, they can make 2 or 3 correct decisions and end up somewhere totally different, or make 2 or 3 incorrect decisions.
True that.
And likewise, right?
Yeah.
So, there's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah. I like that. And then could I just ask, how much would a setup like this, if I was interested in trying to start my own podcast or
Yeah.
whatnot?
So I think, it'll probably set you back around a couple of grand.
Yep.
So, I did the Rodecaster, 4 mic stands, the cables. And that's about it really. Like the headphones are just old headphones that I had at home.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't buy anything special for that because at the end of the day, it's just so that we can hear ourselves. So basically something like that. I guess on, talking about, my sort of podcast journey.
Yeah.
Before I had started, I had quite a few conversations with different people, and I just say, I'm going to start a podcast, and then everybody's always like, oh, okay, what are you going to talk about? And then, I'm just going to talk about life. So I sort of had, an initial idea, which was based around obviously wanting to be able to honour that memory of my mate age, and then also to have those conversations have that conversation with my dad and have those things. And then it's just sort of like grown from there where, where it's something where I can catch up with people that I may not regularly get the chance to do, and just use this as an opportunity to have conversations.
I like that. Yeah.
There's been some conversations that I've had that I was like, man, I wish I had my setup here, because the conversation was just an absolutely phenomenal conversation. Like it was a really enjoyable conversation.
Yeah.
And I think, I think that's the power of it, right? To be able to share that is a gift.
Yep.
Right. So if I'm able to share those things, I view it as a gift, and hence, I try and still keep myself accountable to do it because I enjoy it. And I think, there's a certain level of skill that's required to do it, and by continuously doing it and listening back to conversations, there's things that I can try and improve on.
Yep.
And at the same time, there's things that I like to learn from each person that I talk to as well.
Yeah, I find that really awesome.
Yeah.
Like you're getting different snippets of people's lives, and
Yeah.
you get to during for that next 1-2 hours, it's just that personal moment where it's just you two. It's quite rare nowadays where there's so much technology where it just makes you want to communicate with everyone every time. But I find that really magical, man.
Yeah,
like,
it's interesting. Like I think because a lot of people are working from home or essentially out of work. Because I do look at my stats, but I don't pay heaps of attention to them. Like I'm not driven by them. I don't produce things for the stats. No. But I think it is interesting to see there was a bit of a drop off obviously as more people start to work from home, because I think podcasting as a format people like to listen to when they're commuting or driving. Yeah. Right. If they're not commuting or driving, then it becomes something that they may not do as frequently. Yeah. Because when you're at home, you might be on YouTube instead, or doing those other things. Or, but I like to be able to have that there, so I can go back and listen to those conversations. Yeah. That's
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to have someone like that. Like, when you're like 70s or 80s and you're just sitting back and you're like, hey, this is me when I was in my 40s. Or this is what I was talking about. This is how I was thinking, Yeah. How different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, but, like it's one of those things that anybody can get into. It's just, I think a lot of people don't, may have an idea about what they want to do with a podcast or something like that. But then if it's too specific or niche, it's very hard to continuously produce that kind of content.
Okay, yep.
Right?
Yep.
Whereas, I don't give a shit whether, my podcast has 1 listen or 20. I do it because I enjoy the conversation, right? And then if people get some benefit out of that, then that's just a bonus.
Yes.
That's how I look at it.
Do you ever get sick of hearing people when you're like, I'm starting my podcast, and a lot of people are just like, oh, I want to do a podcast too, and you're like, oh, here we go. Like,
no? Not really.
That's nice
no, honestly, because there hasn't been too many people that have said that to me.
Oh, really?
It's been more like when I've said it to people, they're like, I want to come on.
Oh,
right. People want to come on and just have a chat. Yeah. And that's the cool part, right? Yeah. Because some of the guys that have come on, like I don't have a big history with, like as in even like us, we go back many years.
Yeah.
Right.
Many years.
But with some of these other people, like I might have only met them more recently.
Oh wow.
But I get the opportunity to find out more about them at the same time as share that with other people. So you know, I enjoy that.
I get where you're coming from with that.
Yeah.
That's something I personally enjoy as well. Like
Yeah.
when it came with the whole socializing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just learning from like picking their brains and it's just like substance.
It's a real conversation.
Yeah.
Like when I was doing that podcast with Nick, so he was here for Cirque Stratosphere. He was one of the circus performers.
Oh, what?
And so we did a podcast together, and really interesting guy. Like he obviously grew up in China as a circus actor. Well, like went to a circus school, and then has been working to try and get a better life for himself, right? And so that led him to then move to France for 7 or 9 years or something, and work in a traveling circus so that he could get his French citizenship. And then now he's a stunt performer or stunt guy in blockbuster movies, right? So he's like a lot of obviously movies are on hold at the moment, but a lot of the big movies that were due to film that were potentially being filmed over in the UK that required stunt work. Well, he was going to be a part of all that. He is a part of all that, I should say. But yeah, to be able to
make stories get stories like that, and then like I feel inspired just from listening to that. You know, I really appreciate that.
Alrighty, well, man, we'll call it there.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. I hope to be back.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Yeah, ladies, guys.
All right, bye. Oh, actually, before we finish, how do people find you? How rude of me.
Oh, okay. You can find me at Poke Bros in Cabramatta, shop 15 Hugh Street, or follow me on Instagram, Larry_NGYN Nguyen, or on Facebook, Larry Nguyen. I got a lot of names I go by, and I'll be changing my name in the next few years to Laurence Stanford Nguyen.
Okay. All right, there you go. All right, find him on one of those. Thanks, guys. Sorry, guys. We came back because right after we finished the podcast, we were talking about Laurence and his pothead story.
Yeah.
and I cut him off prematurely, and I said we got to come back to this story. So let's go back to it.
Yeah. So back to my business spark. So it started off with me selling marijuana during university, and it wasn't that hard to find your customer base, especially going to uni. And then from there it just...
So, okay, hang on. Let's go back a step.
Yeah.
So, okay. How did you... how did you come up with, okay, I'm going to start selling weed?
Oh, okay. So it probably started for like a lot of stoners out there where you and your friends are just getting on and you decide, hey, if I buy a bit more, it's cheaper. And if I sell it to my friend, it pretty much covers my cost.
Yep.
And then from there, it just got bigger and bigger. And then eventually I had 2 workers under me. And man, like for a 21-year-old, you're making $3K nearly a week. And then, you don't really feel bad especially when it comes to marijuana, because I've had a few customers who had cancer and they really appreciate it. So that gave me a feel-good feeling, you know?
Yeah.
And then, it wasn't until one day so we have a granny flat in the back of my house. And coincidentally, we used to rent it out, and my mum had rented it out to some guy who was very shady. And many months after he left, we had a new family move in, and I was still doing my thing, selling and all that. And one day I had picked up my order. It was £1, which is like a pillowcase worth of it. And then so I just, that night, it was in a super dry bag, put it into my room, went to sleep. And I live in a double-story building, so my room is on the top. Yeah. And then that morning, all I hear is, "This is the police, open up." And I'm in my undies in like 6, 7 in the morning. I'm like, what the fuck? Is my friends trolling me? And I open the door, and I shit you know, it was like all these officers in riot gear. And I'm like, wow, what the fuck's going on? And they're like, get out of the house. do you have any drugs in your room? I'm like, yeah, I do, a little bit of bud. And then, so coincidentally, they were looking for that previous guy that used to live in the granny flat at the back.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that the day after I went to pick up my stock, they decided to do an entire raid. And and then I think my girlfriend was like, I think it's a sign from God or Buddha that you should not be doing this stuff. And I was like, I think you're right. Yeah, got away with a Section 11. Did community service at a nursing home.
Okay.
Funny enough, it was very fun. Did 100 hours there, just washing dishes, and like talking to all the other elderly workers. But at the time, they didn't know what I was in there for, so I just told them the DUI.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really lovely. Like, I even got like a nice little family photo with them before I left because everyone was so sad when I was leaving. It was really but yeah. That's how it sparked the whole business mindset and everything. So,
So okay, hang on. Let's okay.
Yeah.
It's because we can talk about
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
So
Because I got done. Yeah.
I was trying to. Yeah. Anyway,
that's all right.
Yeah. So okay. So you get this. You look at it and you go, okay, I can cover my costs here.
Yeah.
How did that then grow into having two other guys selling?
Well,
for
you got to cover their costs.
Were they just mates?
Yeah.
Oh, so they were just mates. Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like
Nah, I wasn't a gang or anything.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh, my mates have a bunch of friends that are stoners, and my mate lives in the North Shore. I don't really have connections in the North Shore, so I'm gonna sell weed to this guy, and he's gonna sell to everyone in the North Shore. I got another mate who probably lives too far out west for me, so I'm just gonna bulk sell it to him, and he's gonna just get rid of it for me there.
Yep.
And I'll just get a cut.
Yeah.
Yeah. So business mindset, like you start figuring out things on your own, and a lot of those things that you learn like translate back into the corporate business world, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. Well, see, at the end of the day, like marijuana is one of those things where I think there's a lot of red tape around it when it has does have some proven benefits. Yeah. Like if you look at what's going on in the States at the moment, where almost every product now has CBD in it.
Yeah,
like
it's insane.
There's some definite benefits there that because I guess we want to legislate against it.
Yeah,
is preventing it from hitting the mainstream in Australia at the present moment.
It's Oh, I hope eventually Australia follows suits with America and Netherlands and all that. And have you yourself chased the magic dragon? Kids don't listen to this.
Let's just say I'm a proponent of the products. Let's just say that I think I'd probably say the oils and things like that have significant benefits.
Oh yeah, especially martial arts. It helps.
Not just for that. I think there's definitely some benefits for kids with epilepsy.
Yes.
I think that's a fairly proven link. I think there's also some fairly strong anti-cancer links.
Yep.
And
then just alone when because with the whole cancer thing, they would not feel hungry at all.
Yep.
And then after I've given my service,
they're
more than happy to munch away and whatever to help build that energy to help fight the cancer or whatnot.
Yeah. So did you have just talking about that, right? I guess were they people that you already knew, or how did you come in contact with them?
Friends of friends. And then one of them was a relative to one of my mates. And they'll just be like, hey, she's finding it hard to eat, and I heard that marijuana helps. Can you help me out? And easily. You know? Wouldn't even feel bad. No.
All right. Well, that's our little bonus content for you all.
Bye, guys.
All right, we'll leave it at that. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.